Hey, and welcome, Miss Kara Speaks. Before we get started, I ask that you watch the videos till the end, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. We're back again for another episode of Love is Blind, Season 3, Episode 3. Let's get right into it. So as you know, when we open, we pick up right where we left off with Andrew proposing. Nancy Rodriguez, would you make me the happiest man in the world? Spend the rest of my life with me. Would you marry me? We get a huge pause from Nancy, who has the biggest smile on her face, to say yes. And then she takes another pause. It just doesn't feel right. Womp womp. She says that the life that they could have together would be a good life, a great life, just not forever. Ouch. She thanks him for being so kind, but in the real world, she's looking for something else. He tears up and he says that they came there to take a chance on love, and it makes him sad that it won't be their story. In her confessional, in short, she says, Andrew is too cool, too calm, too collected. Not what she envisioned a husband to be. Nancy, I guess. I do get what she's saying, but you don't want the drama either, girl. So they ask Andrew what he's thinking about. Are you rolling? And then he starts to put a couple of drops of Visine in his eyes. He's like, he smiles. He's like, it doesn't feel good. But he feels satisfied that he went for it. It hurts. Then more Visine drops. He asks, is this okay? And they're like, yeah, I guess if your eyes are hurting you. Child, a mess. I was like, what in the shenanigans? I cannot. I was sitting there watching it with the straight up wow face. Now, in her confessional, Nancy says she would have never run into Bartise in the real world, but he is her soulmate, the male version of Nancy, and she's here for it. I guess. I'll try to stick to the episode at hand because I have watched ahead, so I'm just trying to focus on episode 3. Then we get some pod flashbacks, which I really enjoyed because I always want more than what they show us. And it's weird to me that they fall in love so quickly, based upon what we see. So I really did appreciate this moment. Nancy says she'll be a good wife and he's going to be a good husband. And she hopes he sees it too. So we get more flashbacks and we can see that Bartise got that emotional fulfillment that he was looking for with Miss Nancy. Nancy says if she gets engaged, she hopes it's Bartise. It has to be him. There's no one else. Clearly this was recorded before Andrew proposed, or at least that's my thoughts. So we're finally in the pods with Nancy and Bartise. He talks about the crazy highs with her. He didn't think it would be possible to feel this way about anyone. The feelings have grown into something stronger. He feels it in her too. He's excited to take the next step together. So we get a little more sweet talk. And then he tells her he's taking one knee. And then we get a little blah blah. And he's like, Nancy, I do love you. I want to ask you to be with me for the rest of my life. He proposes and she screams, yes! Nancy's always shrieking and shrilling. And anyway, so they're both super excited. And they tell each other, I love you. So then we see Raven and she talks about being in the experiment and it feeling like a 24-hour love boot camp. We get some flashbacks from her and SK in the pods. And again, I really appreciated seeing this. We see them, they're like eating and they're chilling and they're in the pods with their blankies. Too cute. She says the experiment has forced her to open up about everything in her life and herself. SK in his confessional says all through his life, he's played it safe. He's been reasonable and had all the answers. But joke's on him. He says the experiment makes him feel like he's connecting to a soul or a mind. And he's unlocked a treasure. I don't know how I feel about SK, but when he talks, like I said before, Brother is very smooth with his words, and I do appreciate that. Raven is apprehensive about looks. She says she has to now worry about what to wear and how she's sitting and, body language and all of those things. She says she's sure about him, but you can tell that she's nervous. So they finally meet each other and they hug, and she says she's shaky, and he takes a knee and he puts that ring on her finger. And it was kind of hard to get a vibe on how exactly Raven was feeling when she met him, but SK said that he was falling into her eyes when they met. We go on over to Miss Colleen in her confessional, and she says she feels like she's known Matt for years. She can't stop thinking about him. It's a scary feeling. Girl, I guess. So, with the past two guys that rejected her, she says she's worried that he will reject her too. So, the two of them, they meet up in the pods, and she tells him that she hasn't been good with expressing herself and how she feels. She says she is freaking out, and he didn't think that it was possible to open up again. She says she's ready for the next step. I love you. He says he does not know what the future holds, and then he starts tearing up. And she looks like she is praying over there in that pod. He tells her he's getting down on one knee, and she fanning herself. He tells her he loves her, and he asks her to marry him. She says yes, and she is shaking, and he's smiling, and it's just tears. It's crying. I think he's crying, and she's crying, and then they just kind of revel in the moment for a little while. In Nancy's confessional, she talks about finding the man of her dreams. She's happy she found Bartice, and he chose her. She never wants the feelings to go away. Let me stop making my face up about Nancy and Bartice. I really just wanted at this point for Bartice and Raven get together, but that didn't happen. Raven is with SK. So now here we are with Miss Nancy and Mr. Bartice. He talks about sharing physical attributes, and he says he's attracted to her without seeing her. Age, race, looks, height don't matter. I just want y'all to commit all of this that I'm saying to memory for, I think it's the next episode 4. So they finally meet, and they are all smiles. They hug and they kiss, and he takes a knee and he puts that ring on her finger. She says it's beautiful, and he gives her a little spins her around, and it's in his confessional. He says he's very attracted to Nancy and her girls. He didn't say girls, I'm saying girls, because he said he basically could not keep his eyes up here where they were supposed to be. So then for these two, they show us, they like sit down on the couch, and they're just, having some conversation. Like I said, they share a moment, and they seem to be really into each other, and he says she's magical, and he is ready to spend the rest of his life with her. And this is the happiest day of his life. Matt in his confessional talks about digging deep to see if he could be emotionally available to find his wife. He's fallen in love with her without seeing her. Miss Colleen in her confessional says the experiment is a little cuckoo kazoo, I think she said, and she didn't think she'd be able to connect with somebody, but she's in love with him. Matt, he fears going into the real world and that it's completely different than in the pods. And we're going to get into that going forward. Also, not sure if that's episode 4 or 5. They finally meet, and she runs to him, and he picks her up, and he's spinning her around. They hug and spin and kiss, and it's cute. And he does not take a knee, but he does put that ring on her finger anyway. She seemed really pleased with him in her confessional. He said that he had no words. He was so happy. Now, again, I wrote in my notes, if you ask me, it should have been Bartice and Raven, Nancy and Andrew, Cole and Colleen, and I wasn't too sure quite who else because we only got to meet a limited amount of people. Also wrote in my notes, I would like to get to see some more choices. We had 30 people to choose from, and honestly, I wanted to see more Black folks. We got 2 seconds of Kalika and Brannigan. No Devontae, no Sharita, no Chelsea. Heck, I could have even gone for some more Kimberly. I think that was her name, and that is where this show frustrates me. Even Lauren, I think from season 1, called them out for lack of black leads, and I'm with her. Are they not making genuine connections, or I want them to do a little better going forward with the picking? But I heard they're filming season 4 already in Seattle, so we shall see. Wrote in my notes that they either need to rectify this or we need our own new show. Just a minor critique. Anywho, so we're out of the pods and the house and we're headed to Malibu. Nick and Vanessa tell us 5 couples have fallen in love and gotten engaged without ever seeing one another. It's been entirely an emotional connection, and the hope is that the physical connection is just as strong as the emotional one. So, you know the drill. The weddings are in 4 weeks. Will looks, race, lifestyle, or insecurities tear them apart in the real world, or will love conquer all? We see Nancy and Bartice, we see Alexa and Brennan, Matt and Colleen, and they all have small talk about, random various different things. And the couples that we see, it looks like it's so far so good. Matt and Colleen seem like the most excited thus far. They're talking about, clothes. She's showing him, I got this dress and I got this dress, and, just making jokes. They talk about sleeping arrangements. And then we talk a little bit about, his ex that broke his heart, because I think she was asking if the two of them lived together, and I can't remember what the answer was for that. So we hear the couples talk about the pods and their feelings come into reality, and Brennan is so excited that she's real. He thought the whole thing was just fake. He has no questions in his mind about her. Being in person, everything is just way better. Too cute. Always loved Brennan and Alexa from the start. I'm really, really pulling for these two. We finally see Zanab and Cole, and they're, in their hot tub, and they're drinking and they're talking, and she can't wait to get out of her makeup. Oh, and she snores. So then all of a sudden, Cole, he don't want to talk deep conversation. He wanted deep conversation from Colleen, but he's like, this is boring. And he starts talking about, what's your favorite big cat? Child, early for these two, I just was not feeling it. He says this is what the girl he fell in love with looks like in real life. He had a different idea, but he says he's attracted to her. He didn't expect them to be as physically attracted to each other, but if she's feeling the same way that he's feeling, it's all good. In her confessional, Zanab said she is trying to put real life Cole together with pod Cole, which they always have a problem with on this show. I can't remember about season 1, but definitely in season 2. She says she loves how playful he is and that she needs that in her life. She believes that there is chemistry between them. So these two, they're about ready to head to bed, but first Cole has to complain about the length of her nightly routine. And it sounds like he made her feel a little insecure by saying that she looked totally different without her makeup more than one time. I told you, Cole and Zanab, and he was calling her Zay. I mean, sometimes we call him Zanab, and I can't remember if it was this episode or not, but I just didn't like him calling her Zay. I don't like Cole. I'm not a fan. Sorry. The way that I recorded 90% of this video with the microphone on the couch, I'm not about to go back and record it. I'm already behind, so hopefully the sound quality is not too bad. I will, when I go back and edit it, we'll see, but I just can't because I record very long and I try to cut it down. So I don't know what I said here in my notes, but Nancy says that Bartice isn't what she imagined him to look like, but when she got him, she was pleasantly surprised. She's excited to spend the first night with him, but she wants him to take the lead. Nancy wants to get physical. So they're in the bathroom and they're smiling and they're kissing. I think it was his confessional that Bartice is says he's having a hard time connecting Pod Nancy to her physical appearance. But he says once he realized that, he knows her, that is no longer awkward, and he says that he likes how she looks. So these two are in the bathtub, and Nancy is just laughing all loud, how Nancy do, and they're laughing and they're smiling and they're having a good time. When Miss Nancy, she starts talking about unclogging a toilet when there's no plunger available. She brings up a situation that she was in, and I bring this up because it was such a weird and awkward conversation and just plain gross. It's like you're trying to get some, and this is what we talk about in the tub with a bottle? Okay, girl. He somehow gets her to hush, and they kiss, and I guess it's all good. We finally see SK and Raven, and they're in the bathroom trying to establish, their nighttime routine, because there's a double sink. Which sink do you want? And blah, blah, blah. So she says that it's strange to have an emotional connection with someone that you've only seen once for a few minutes. Inside, she's comfortable, but outside her body, she's struggling. And she's wondering, does he like her like he did in the pods? It's a valid question, because like I said, and I mentioned with somebody else, they have the hardest time connecting their pod person to their person in reality. So they get in the bed, TV on or TV off? He says TV off. She's flexible, and then we find out that she's a big news girl. They just, they talk and they laugh, and it's a little awkward, but it's cute. And they talk about easing into the situation. She says that she's a little physically awkward. He can tell, because she's saying that, basically that she ain't have to use her body language inside the pods. He says he's okay with it. He says that it has to be natural. And then in his confessional, he says that the physical connection, it'll be gradual. He says he's romantic, affectionate, passionate. She will find out. Colleen and Matt, they're brushing their teeth and they're getting ready for bed, and they kiss, and then we see Alexa and Brennan. They're having a good night kiss, and then boom, all of a sudden it's the next day. Zanab, she's ironing her clothes. Cole is standing over in the corner, kind of staring. It's a little weird in the distance. It's a little awkward. And Zanab says she's a sexual person. Sleeping with Cole felt great. They're engaged, in love, adults. It's not like a one-night stand. She says she was looking forward to waking up and having a sweet morning, a little coffee, breakfast in bed, and holding each other. But she says Cole rolled over and got out of the bed and didn't really talk to her for a couple of hours. She says she's in her head, and no doubt she's feeling a little insecure. He says that they're very physically compatible. They felt deeper love the night before. When they wake up, he thought everything was fine, but she was in a mood. He says he was just tired and wanted to let her sleep. And I just call BS, because that makes no sense. Like, if you were tired, then why wouldn't you just lay there in the bed with her instead of getting up and letting her sleep? But anyway, he says she's not giving the I love you vibes, and that she's standoffish. Maybe she's overanalyzing everything, he says, but she says that she loves him. They're supposed to get married in 4 weeks, and maybe he's reading into it too much. Then all of a sudden, I think he might have asked her, but then they start discussing what they're gonna wear. So in the bathroom, he wants to say something, and then he's like, never mind, I can talk about it later, because he's like, oh, let me ask you this while she was brushing her teeth, while your mouth is full, or whatever it was he said. And then she stopped, and he was like, never mind, we could talk about it later. So she calls him coy, and he doesn't know what coy means. Yeah. I wrote yikes. And then she explains it to him, and he's like, I think he called her passive aggressive. So she talks about the disconnect between the pods and real life. Said that before. Told you it's just going to keep coming up. I think this was like her confessional moment, and that she wished that they were on the same page. She hopes that they'll have better mornings. He asks if he's like, you still care about me? He's such a child. She says that she does, and she, starts getting her makeup on, and that is where we end and talk about your lack of communication. This review did not need to be this long, but hopefully once I edit, and like I said, I'm hoping the sound quality will be okay, you guys, and I wasn't like passing gas or anything crazy with the mic sitting on the couch. I'm hoping for some shorter videos going forward since we're playing catch up. Like I said before, I did not see it for these two, but what do you think? Drop it down in the comments and let me know what you thought about episodes 1, 2, and 3. Comment, like, subscribe, share, and join me back here for episode 4. Peace.